So as we get settled in to one of my favorite parts of the day, a very warm welcome to an hour presence practice. And this is actually the sixth and final. Well, there is no final, but this is the sixth, and for this series will be the final of using this practice where we very immediately touch in on these qualities of nature's flow that we're part of. And then we've been going on adventures into Qigong, including adventures with a sense of Qi down, even a little bit of the circulation practice, even a bit of Taoist alchemy last time, where we got to see that there's this fullness of being. Jing Qi Shan, Yi Qi Jing, that is this continuous loop that experientially, quite magically in a way, gives us this experience of both feeling and doing as a human being that is part of all of the flow of nature. And today we will be, in a way, continuing, furthering that adventure, and in a way, letting it be very simple. And so especially the whole flow quality. Everything just together, unfolding all together. Body, chi, awareness, everything all together at once. And so we might see the practice as kind of unpacking the richness of all of this, and then relaxing into the integrity of it's simply all together. And it's already going on. For me to be speaking, for me to make a gesture with my hand, for me to click the mouse button and fix my tech at the beginning. All of that is coming from this integrity of this loop that includes both feeling and doing, from the fullness of our being that has these qualities of presence, especially the whole flow. And so we're going to dive into the richness and see if letting it be simple in a way can even further enrich our access and experience of the fullness of our being. And so we'll begin our foundations. And eyes can be open or closed for the practice. And letting ourselves feel inwardly and the richness of our inner landscape. That includes the moment by moment movement we call breathing. And for the next couple of out breaths, just letting the shoulders drop a little more fully. Let them go and lay down their burden to the support of our torso. And for a moment here, actually lifting our hands off our lap, giving them a shake. Giving them a good, gentle shake, and then let them just fall onto the lap. Let your lap receive the weight of your arms and hands. Letting your hands receive the support coming from your lap. And even with that shake out and drop, there's probably still pockets of subtle tension and holding in the hands. And just letting the next couple of out breaths be an invitation to further let go in the hands. Really let the hands feel that they don't have to hold themselves up at all. And now beginning to notice our seat, where our body weight lays down to the support of the ground. We even like to feel it almost like a waterfall from your head to your shoulders, down your spine, including your arms, all the way to where your body makes contact with the ground. The mass of our whole body being drawn towards the mass of the whole earth, and vice versa. And then just staying right in that place of mutual contact, body and ground meeting, ground and body meeting. And that yin and yang of lay down and support. That is one seamless whole. One event of interaction and connection. Just noticing if, as we draw our attention to these different areas, there's a bit of leaning forward with our perception, perhaps a bit of going towards that part of our body like an object. And what would it be like to first feel like you can hang out at the back of your head? Kind of a laid back sense hanging out at the back of your head and taking in feet, hands, shoulders, and that mutual, contactful, flowing connection happening in all those places. And just to play with this, we've also felt like we could center ourselves in our lower dantian, a bit below our belly button, and in the middle of us. And so, what would it be like to feel like you're there? You're there in the center of your body. And from there, feeling the seat, the hands, the shoulders all at once. And wherever you may feel yourself in this moment, which may be distributed throughout your experience or more in one place or another. Just letting ourselves feel. Seat, hands, and shoulders. And the contactful mutual flow that unfolds there moment by moment. And what would it be like to allow that feeling to linger? Even as we begin to include the feeling of the flow of air at our nose, flowing in, flowing out, and that gentle, open inquiry of what's the finest flow I can feel. And can use the alternate nostril noticing pattern to allow ourselves to feel the soothingness of this fine free flow of air. And how we can let this sense of invisible and finely flowing infinite flows within flows, practically without end. That's going on just in our breathing wind. To become familiar with this sense of perception that's not grasping, that's not clinging to some object. I've got it. That's it. But continually opens. And as we saw last time with the refining of Taoist alchemy, that it's this opening to ever finer flows without putting a conceptual limit on it, that can help us feel our body in a fresh way and help us experientially find that even our body is this spectrum that includes such fine flows. of messages, signals, awareness. And we can always begin by feeling how what we think of as our body can itself, in a way, dissolve into these ever finer flows if we allow ourselves to feel that richness. So, taking a few more breaths and just letting ourselves become familiar with this open attitude of not limiting the freedom of flow of air coming in, flowing out. And then we go into our next interval of practice and letting that attitude linger. And as a reminder, on each in breath, we feel the flow of air come down inside us. And then on the out breath, feeling the cascade of the physical body, a downward cascade as the breath leaves us, starting with the front body, and then maybe seeing what it's like to continue to breathe in, feel the breath coming down inside us, free flow of air. And then feeling the 3D surface of our ribs, our belly, our back, all rippling in fine wave-like movement as the air leaves us. Fine free flow comes down inside of us. And the fine free flow of our body, our 3D body, all gently cascades in a wave down. Perhaps beginning to feel now that downward cascade on the out breath as a little bit like that waterfall. of everything laying down all the way to our seat. And what might it be like to include the arms as well as part of our 3D body, all gently undulating with the breath and laying down. And then letting the toggling back and forth of feeling the breath coming in and feeling the cascading body to fade out like an echo, where with each out breath it becomes a bit fainter as a practice. Notice if there's now a little more spaciousness to feel feet, hands, and shoulders, all in mutual flow, all interconnected in this fine free flow of one flowing all together body. And then letting even that gently fade out as any particular practice, any scanning of the body, any trying to place our attention in any particular place. And for a few moments, nothing to manage, nothing to manipulate or make any different. And throughout these foundational intervals, as we've touched in mutual flow and free flow, I notice we've also been already evoking some of the sense of the whole flow quality. And for our final interval, as we usually do, we'll be using the feeling of length and space in our fingers to feel how this wholeness is not a kind of vacuous, conceptual whole, that it's the wholeness of all this teeming interaction and interbeing arising as this practically infinite free flow, all mutually connected into a whole, unfolding all together. And so to bring in that free and mutual sense in our fingers, we'll do the finger by finger, breath by breath practice. On the next out breath, slightly elongating the length of your thumbs, feeling to the very tip of the thumbs. And then continuing with the next breath and the next finger. Letting that micro unfurling of the length of each finger on the out breath to be this reminder of between any 2 points along that length, there's that practically infinite, free and mutual flow of the parts and particles making up our fingers. That attitude of opening, free falling through our concepts of, oh yeah, I know my finger. I've felt it before. Or maybe I've already felt it a bit more and I'm done. To just staying open, simply not blocking out the fullness of being that we call our fingers. And when you come to the next round, a slight variation since we've talked quite a bit about how the breath evokes for us that sense of the free flow. So now we'll begin to breathe both in and out of our fingertips, as if we're filling the volume of that finger with fine, free flow of nature, since that's what it is. So continuing breath by breath, finger by finger. And now we're filling the 3D volume of that finger. May even feel as though the breath is coming in and filling the finger with a fineness of flow. That fills every nook and every cranny of our fingers, every little ridge, no part left out as we breathe in and out as though through our fingers. And as we go through the finger by finger practice, you can be a little curious about what happens to the other fingers when we're breathing as though through just one finger on both hands. What does happen to those other fingers? Notice if, even with our sense of the breath and an easefulness, we may still feel a bit like we're peering down at our fingers. And that we can only take them in one at a time, that fully, that richly, that completely. And just dropping the practice, slightly spreading all the fingers, heart of the hands open. And letting the fingers feel even finer, like sunshine, like they're their own light. They are their own signal. And that light and signal emanates from right where they are, fills the space right where they are, which is even how we feel our fingers, as being where they are in space. Letting ourselves bask in the sunshine of all of our fingers all at once. And rest in the integrity of not one part or particle of our fingers ever being left behind or ever racing ahead of this moment. And then letting ourselves begin to feel that as we feel the space in a way illuminated by our finger presence and its signals, even our own awareness. That also allows us to be aware of the space in between all of our fingers. May like to widen that space a little bit between all the fingers, just to check. Yeah, we can feel that since we know we just widened it. Or bring the fingers a little closer together. And we feel it. We know we've done that. And as simply as possible to begin to feel that all of us is fully in this integrity of this moment. Our feeling and our doing and our being. Simply flowing all together. Beginning to bring your thumb and pointer finger a little bit closer together, narrowing that space. And beginning to form an intention that those two fingers are going to touch. Continuing to move very slowly and just noticing there's a sense of those fingers are going to touch. The doing of the fingers coming closer and closer, space between them becoming smaller until there's that one moment that they touch. And feeling the touch of our fingers. And gently releasing that. Putting more space between those two fingers. And now on an out breath, moving the fingers with an intention for them to touch, doing. They touch, and we breathe in the feeling of them touching. And let them open. And repeating in these cycles of doing. Touch, breathing in the feeling. Reset. And the next time the two fingers touch on both hands, just hanging out there a few moments, and letting ourselves feel the integrity of that physical loop that our fingers are making. There's something about a loop that perceptually we feel it as a whole. It wouldn't be a loop if it wasn't one interconnected whole. And as we talked about last time, our feeling and our doing are also a loop. Kind of inner loop through aspects of our being. Jing Qi Shen, Yi Qi Jing. The words don't really matter. But what we could explore in this adventure is a sense of that integrity, of that simple loop, the fullness of our being in each moment. That includes while feeling, doing, feeling and doing not as separate, but as two parts of that loop that are ever going on in our experience. So putting a bit of space in between our thumb and pointer finger once again. And as we draw them close while feeling, doing, as they touch while feeling, doing, as they reset while feeling, doing. We're feeling our fingers and they are moving in this flow of signals from our body and to our body in one continuous feeling doing loop. That's always whole. It's always just going on. They like to bring the fingers closer together, let them touch, and just ever so slightly vary the pressure, and even more subtle doing while feeling, doing. And letting your sense of yourself hang out at the back of your head. seeing what it would be like to drop down into your lower dantian and sense the while feeling doing of your fingertips. And then letting in place your fingertips right as they touch. To be part of the fullness of yourself. The wholeness of each of us. Included fully at our fingers. And we'll begin to stand in a moment. You can make any adjustments you might like. And not only stand, but begin to move into the doing that is so much of our life. Because by letting it be simple, we give ourselves a chance to bring more of this richness, to allow more of this richness to linger, even in our daily living. And so if your eyes were closed, welcome to gently open them. And how the light around you is not so different from the signals radiating from your fingers. The feeling fills the space of our body. Feeling of perception even fills the space of the whole room. And it's with that feeling that we can then respond and do something amazing like coming to stand, touching another object in our room, while feeling doing, coming into our Uji stance. While feeling doing, beginning our embracing Qigong. To move to perceive, to form the intention of raising our arms and letting them come down the middle. All within the integrity of our own while feeling doing loop. That's part of all of nature unfolding all together at once. Pausing for a moment here in post pose, slightly spreading the fingers, closing the eyes if it helps, and remembering not what we usually feel as our fingers, but what we may have been feeling in our fingers when we allowed ourselves to feel their practically infinite fineness, filling their 3D volume in integrity of this wholeness of interbeing. You can breathe in and out through the fingertips if that helps more than a bunch of words or they evoke the same thing. And then what would it be like to allow our hands to stay, to keep what is always there, their vibrancy, their aliveness, their presence, the qualities of flow that are always theirs. While feeling that doing, we begin to flow into the embracing Qigong once again. That doing is not in competition with feeling, but perhaps we could even let each finger, each part and particle of our fingers feel that they get to come along for the ride of this movement, enhanced rather than dimmed, while feeling doing. 3 more. And for today, this partially completes an hour practice, an hour presence. And we usually go into 3 minutes of neither practicing nor not practicing, where I intentionally don't give any direction of how you might spend those 3 minutes. And today, as part of letting ourselves connect something that maybe last time seemed quite esoteric, maybe this time seemed too simple, but to show how it can begin to be a practice that we don't have to necessarily set a time or set aside time to more deliberately practice, but that we can carry into any activity. So I brought my sponge and a dish, and you're welcome to just pick up any object and just going through the motions like you're cleaning it. A chore that we could just try and get through. We try it some different ways, slower, faster. And while feeling doing, while feeling doing, a simple reminder phrase that can encompass the many aspects of the adventures we've been on here as we've come to more include the signals within and even the fine, free, mutual flow, whole flow of awareness itself. All flowing all together, feeling, doing. I'll be quiet for a minute here as we just play with this, letting the practice linger. And thank you for adventuring together with me, with us, with this sense of our practice not ever really coming to a close and not even really being a practice, since we are letting ourselves, giving ourselves a chance to simply feel more of the fullness of our being that is unconditional, that does not depend on any level of our trying or our doing.